Ladies and gentlemen, please
Testing
welcome our Building a Bench of Millennial Frame Makers for Consistent Delivery Experts panel and Greg Lotko, our moderator.
Thank you, God. Hey, thanks, folks. I appreciate you being here today. This is going to be a very kind of informal discussion, giving you an opportunity to hear from a couple of folks. I'll let you guess who they are on the panel that have a number of years in the mainframe space, but more importantly, you'll have the opportunity, a number. I didn't say if that was 1 or 10 or 5,000. But more importantly, you'll have the opportunity to hear from some millennials in their own words, their experience with the platform, their experience interacting with it, and their approach. So, as we think about the mainframe, even to this day, it's at the center of everything we do in our lives. You would be, and those who aren't sitting here who have no idea, would be hard pressed to do anything in their daily life without a mainframe touching it. They may not know it, right? Whether they make a phone call, whether or not they do a bank transaction, whether or not they use their credit card, ship product, it really is at the center of everything that we do. And if you had the opportunity to be at a Shoke session this morning, we talked a lot about the idea that mainframe is absolutely, as part of that, playing a critical role in everything that's being done around digital optimization and transformation. But what I hear a lot of folks talking about around the world, not just in the US, but around the mainframe platform, is the actual or the perceived struggle in attracting new talent to the platform. So today what we want to do is talk a bit about that so that you'll hear about some of the successes that companies, partner, customer, as well as CA, and you can generalize to other businesses, are having in attracting millennials, getting them engaged, having them be very, very successful with the platform, and then how to keep them in that environment. So with me on stage, we have Ken Harper. He's the Director of Mainframe at Ensono. Ken.
Thank you, Greg.
We have Caroline McNutt. She's an Associate Mainframe Systems Programmer, and I think you would guess she's one of our millennials. And then we also have Sujay Solomon. He's a Product Manager at CA Technologies in the mainframe space. So let's start with you, Ken. So I want to hear what Ensono's position is with respect to the mainframe. Specifically, kind of how are you positioning the mainframe to that millennial workforce, particularly the idea of attracting new talents and the millennials, not only to come and work on the platform, but as a career path. And maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you do to recruit.
Okay, thank you. That was probably the longest question I've ever been asked, but
yeah. Wait till you hear the answer.
Yeah. Thanks for setting me up. So I'm the product leader for Mainframe at Ensono, and whether it's self-serving or not, I have to make sure I have a sustainable workforce. Roughly 5 years ago, we started our succession planning, and that include going through all the teams and making it part of leadership, their objectives for a successful plan. So we went through and identified gaps and identified risk areas that we may potentially see in the future. Once we did that, we actually put a recruiting plan together. And our first prong of recruiting had to do with universities and taking millennials and next geners and really establishing relationships with universities. So we've done a really good job in establishing those relationships with two. That's Northern Illinois University, so if we have any Huskies out there, go whip them dogs, and University of Central Arkansas. My esteemed colleague to the left is a recent graduate. So it was really important for us to establish that relationship and get an opportunity to really talk to the brightest, folks coming out of school, the students. So that's probably one of the key features of getting that establishment with an academic institution. The next part, of course, is actually going out and doing the recruiting and working with HR. And one of the things we did is use our youngest workforce at that time to go out there and do it. And that's how you're going to attract millennials. And,
like for like.
Exactly. So they're not going to you know, when we have a good argument in terms of, you know, them working for Google or Facebook and me telling them about opportunities in the mainframe, it's like they're talking to their dad or grandpa. So we, you know, we let them talk to Caroline.
Or at least their older brother.
Yeah, well, thank you, Greg. Now, see how I turned that around? You're my friend now. So, yeah, so anyway, and in as much as we like to talk to computer science or IT folks in school, we look beyond that. There's a, you know, what I always like to talk about is the non-technical skills are just as important, if not more than technical skills. And being a service provider, all of the folks that work on the mainframe side, actually probably our entire company, are ambassadors of our company. So being self-directed, you know, being curious and wanting to be challenged is really important to us. So we look beyond sometimes the technical skills and look for those types of attributes. Of course, after you know, talking and recruiting, it's the actual hiring process. And as I said before, as much as a lot of the students want to work for Facebook or Google, you know, if you can offer them a pretty good position at a very competitive salary right out of school, it's a very compelling decision for them to do the right thing.
Yep.
So.
Good. Sujay, can you kind of shed some light on the experience with CA?
Absolutely. So at CA, we have something called the Associate Software Engineering Program, and was actually started in 2007, and we've ever since, every year, we hire quite a few folks across all the CA offices that we have into this program called the Associate Software Engineering Program, and it's been very successful for us in that we've been able to hire a lot of folks who are either fresh out of college, or maybe it's somebody who's maybe trying to make a career change, so go from maybe in nursing or something in a medical field into computer science-based fields, right? So we reached out to a lot of them and we hire them in, and we actually understand and accept that when they come out of college, they may not have all the expertise that we would need them to have on the mainframe. So we actually provide a month-and-a-half long training for them. In the States, we actually bring them all to Pittsburgh, and we do about 3 weeks of kind of soft skills training. And for that, we actually include both our mainframe and our non-mainframe ASEs in there. And after that, we sort of focus on the mainframe ASEs and get them really up to speed on mainframe. We put them through a lot of exercises and just assembly programming and Rex and all of it, and they kind of embrace it, and they network and empower each other to learn mainframe, and they start actually believing that they can be successful on that platform. So I actually went through that program myself, and since then, though, I've kind of started giving back a bit, I would say, so I help a lot with recruiting. So as Ken was saying, we send our ASEs out to colleges for recruiting and kind of do the interviews themselves. So when other people start talking to our ASEs, they know that there's a lot of new people coming into the industry. So we do that. I'm an instructor for the ASE program itself, so I teach the first week of it, which is quite rewarding for me. I get to influence them as they come into the industry very quickly. And then other ways, outside of CA, we actually engage in something called ZNextGen. It's a project that's Share, and I'm one of the leaders there. ZNextGen it's a beautiful source of networking for anybody who's new to the mainframe platform. So just more giving back, so things like that, Greg.
So I think kind of to summarize, what you hear folks talking about here is taking a multi-pronged approach, right? It's the idea of what can you do to develop folks inside your own organization, moving them over to the mainframe space. What can you do attracting and pulling people directly out of the universities? Talked about organizations like Share, but you also heard them talk about the idea of kind of retraining or a change from a career. You talked about nursing. We found a good overlap with military, people that have that type of experience. And some of it, I think, is thinking about those that have that personality or ethics or that drive, that they're the type of people that will become passionate about a platform and give back to that community. So we've had success across those different organizations. So, Ken, you want to continue to kind of expand on that around the candidates and additional points on kind of where you're planning to do alignment with the business?
Sure, yeah. So along with recruiting, from schools, we also looked within and looked at different teams where we can actually, bring people to the platform. And we found some success with our service desk, only from the fact of, the number of calls they take from clients and then dealing with the staff. They understand the nomenclature and some of the acronyms of the mainframe. And we've also established an internship program at UCAA. So I'll turn it over to Caroline here in a minute, but one of the things that we've seen over the last 18 months is we've just been killing it in terms of bringing on mainframe clients. And if we didn't have a succession plan that we had put in place 5 years ago, we'd be hard-pressed right now to fill positions where we've had, experience ourselves, some mainframe SMEs that have left, and total transparency of the next geners taking their spot. So Caroline, why don't you share some of your life story of intern and your onboarding at Ensono?
I was an intern for Ensono last summer, and I was on my last semester of school, and I came in with the internship program and did an internship for about 2 months, and then I went part-time during my last semester, and then I walked, and 2 days later I was a full-time employee, which is fantastic.
When she said she walked, she meant graduation.
Yeah, not that I walked away.
I quit this co-op thing and they hired her back in as a reg.
No, after I graduated, which is cool because a lot of the people that I went to school with, they're still looking for jobs. So it was nice to have that opportunity to get my foot in the door when I could. And I was one of the first interns in our Arkansas office. And since then, I've gone back as a brand ambassador. And I've also gone as a career fair and met with a bunch of people. And in doing that, the next year when we brought on our interns, we had 4 of them instead. And they all knew me as a familiar face, and it helps that they know somebody that's already there. So they can come to me and go, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, look, I already did this, and here you go. So it was a good opportunity.
So how do you keep the new recruits excited? How do you keep them engaged? I mean, obviously they have you to go to, but are there specific things that you do or Sujay?
Keep them challenged, right? And it's not hard to do on this platform. It's definitely rewarding, but it's also quite challenging. So, I mean, for my personal experience in terms of getting onboarded at CA, it was like I explained before. The ASE program has this month-and-a-half training that's involved there. So I got a call out of nowhere. I was actually working for a startup company for just a year or so. Get a call and it says, okay, there's a lot of operating system level programming. Is this something that interests you? It's on this mainframe platform. And honestly, all I knew at that time about mainframes were that they need to be hacked, because that's what movies told me, that they need to be hacked. So I'm like, I mean,
they need to be,
cool.
It doesn't work.
Yeah,
but,
right, yeah. Good luck with that.
But I looked it up, and I mean, it looked really cool to me. It's just all this mission critical applications that work on the platform, and I figured, like, I mean, this stuff isn't going anywhere. Somebody's got to keep it going, and I'm like, let's join and see where it takes me. So I joined, and we went through about a month and a half of training, and I loved it. I actually enjoy programming in operating system level languages and all that. So that was great for me, and just being able to network with 20 or so of my peers who are also all learning mainframe kind of trial by fire at the same time gave me this group of people across the company that I can depend on and go to and ask questions even years after I went through that program. So, I mean, if I'm asking my mentor or somebody, I'm like, probably thinks that I should know that stuff, but if I'm gonna go ask somebody who just went through training with me, I don't feel nearly as bad, right? So that was extremely helpful for me there.
So what challenges did you face? I mean, as you're working newly on the platform, I mean, Sujay in particular, you were working on developing the stuff that other people will use to develop on the mainframe. How did you find it as kind of you went into this new unhackable environment that, you know, on TV they just shoot the monitors and everything dies. You don't actually have to get to the computer. But what are the challenges you had?
Right, I mean, absolutely right. There's no denying that. All I want is a file on the mainframe. I need to go to a bunch of screens on ISPF or TSO, navigate to a few things, and then fill out all these numbers that involve DCB and all those things. Like, hey, all I want is a file. I don't want to deal with all this. It's a data set, it's a member, just give it to me. I don't want to put all that stuff in.
No, that doesn't sound like a millennial, right? Just give it to me. I don't want to deal with all that.
So,
but you took a technical approach to it. Go on.
We did. So the thing is, we were maybe 5 or 6 engineers on a team that were all working on assembler or Rex or some sort of operating system level programming on ZOS. And we had a varying range because we kept hiring for this ASE program. So we had somebody who was maybe 5 to 6 years in, some who were 3 to 4, some kind of brand new, fresh out of college, joining Mainframe and doing development. So this group said to ourselves that, hey, why can't we change this? If you're doing development for a different platform, maybe you're writing in Java or something, you're using things like Git when you're working with SCMs, you can be using CLIs, you might be using high-level scripting languages like Python and things like that. You might be using Jenkins to do continuous integration. Why can't we have that just because we're on the mainframe? I mean, there's nothing stopping us, right? So we kind of went on this journey of just enabling ourselves to be able to use all of those open source tools and industry standard tools. As part of that, we built something called, I guess I'm allowed to call it Project Brightside today. And it involves this command line interface that is, believe it or not, command line interfaces are actually very millennial friendly. We use Git, we use all of these command line interfaces that might be similar to a ZOS console for some of you.
They're just not green, though, right?
I mean, they might be, they could be. So,
I didn't mean environmentally green, I meant green screen, right?
True. So the beauty of it is people know it, they can use it in any high-level scripting languages, and we really enabled that to allow our new folks who are joining our teams to become productive very quickly. We threw some CI/CS applications at a very new group, and they didn't even know Mainframe, and they were able to use this and do development for the most part using it. So it kind of moved the platform along that way. So.
Very cool, very cool. So I mean, look, millennials, give it to me now, but found a way to do it for themselves and to make it an easier environment. So Caroline, can you kind of share a little bit about your experience as a systems programmer at Insona?
Well, when I started, I didn't know what a mainframe was until I got into my internship program. And from what I learned in school, a lot of the things that I learned I was able to apply over to the mainframe, and I picked it up pretty quickly. And it's not that much different than anything else that I've done. Typically now, I'm just taking legacy stuff and trying to automate it, is what I spend the vast majority of my time now doing. But that's about it.
Okay.
That's key, Greg, only from the fact of, I think, assigning a responsibility and objectives very early in the career, allowing them ownership and building their self-esteem and confidence, I think is a real important point. Also, I'd like to point out another critical success factor, and that's really assigning really good mentors. Someone who can communicate, explain concepts, and be there for life lessons as well as not only technical abilities.
That's key, right? The sense of ownership is really key. If you empower somebody to actually have that sense of ownership, then they feel passionate towards it and they feel empowered to own it and make it better. And that's what we ended up doing with Brightside. We were able to actually get these developers who are not really mainframe oriented, so people like Caroline can actually become the experts now on our platform easily using tools that we have.
Very cool, very cool. So actually, I think what I'd like you guys to do now is think about and talk, we'll start with Sujay and kind of work this way. What do you think about the future of the mainframe, right? So your perspective, you're new into this platform and the environment. Tell me kind of where do you see the future?
I mean, I think the future is bright. I mean, as Ashok mentioned in his keynote today, just the transformation that is happening is just absolutely key. And as long as we continue that, I think the future for mainframes is just it's totally bright, just like Brightside. The only I would say though, that as a platform and as consumers of this platform, kind of have to agree and accept that the speed at which we're transforming, we've got to keep it up. We can't slow down. As long as we keep it up, we'll be in a good place.
Good. Caroline?
It's not going anywhere. And I know everybody always says it's going to, but they've been saying that for a very long time now. And so I think
we are filming this, right? I mean, so everybody got the millennial saying it's not going anywhere.
But I know for our clients, it's one of the main thing that we have. And it's one of the best platforms we have to service our clients. So I think the future is very bright for
Ken?
I don't think it's bright. I think it's blinding, actually.
With these lights are, right?
Yeah, right, yeah, along with this vodka. But by the way, thank you.
You got a different bottle than I do.
Yeah, I got your bottle. So, by the way, we're here till Thursday in case. My point is that, we heard from Ashok's, keynote today about, there's less talk about getting off the mainframe, and I think, businesses and people and IT, business people, IT people are really recognizing the fact of let's how can this play in our ecosystem in terms of large data, high transaction, high volume, and companies are getting bigger, right, through mergers and acquisitions, and I think that's where the mainframe really plays. I'll let you comment on IBM, but the fact of the matter is, even on the Z14 announcement, it wasn't so much feeds and speeds, it was functions, it was pervasive encryption, it was analytics, right? All these business functions rather than the typical speeds and feeds. So,
So hey, my perspective, I absolutely would say the future is very bright. I mean, kind of bookending, thinking about how we started with this, the idea that mainframes touch everybody's life just about every day, and you don't realize it. And the reality is there's not a platform on the planet that can do the throughput, the performance, and the volume that this platform does. But what it needs is people to continue to be working on it well into the future. And I think, I see a mix of millennials and folks that have been down a little bit, around a little bit longer. When we came into this environment and started working on this platform, some of us had never seen a mainframe before, and we learned. And I would tell you, for one, having spent some time talking with the millennials here, they certainly are no dumber than we were. They would tell you they're much smarter.
I think that's a compliment. I'm not quite sure.
They're at least as smart as we were. But I think to summarize what you heard, I mean, we weren't talking a ton about technology. It was more about approach. It was more about the mindset. It was more about the freedom and flexibility and the types of people that you want to attract. Just like your companies are hiring new people to work on distributed apps and to learn the apps and the stuff that's in your environment, we have to do the same in the mainframe environment. We cannot continue to just say, oh my God, look how skinny that team can be and how efficient it can be. Don't worry, we don't have to hire anybody. You got to do the same thing. You got to plan early. You got to feed that ecosystem, and then absolutely embrace that agile culture. From that perspective, this platform is no different. You can do everything that you can do on the other platforms in this environment and be successful. Offer those new people freedom. Allow them to have the opportunity to learn, to take responsibility and go forward. But on the future being bright, I mean, look, you don't have to look any further than just the last quarter of IBM's results around the mainframe. In my past, I was head of the mainframe at IBM for about 3 years, and I managed 2 of the different generations. And based on public information out there, I'll tell you, in the last 4 or 5 generations, this is the best first quarter launch that IBM has ever had on the mainframe in the last 4 or 5 generations. And that speaks volumes. People get it. And I think it goes to the functionality and the value of the platform. It's not just speeds and feeds. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm actually gonna show you the last slide in case anybody gets up as we go to Q&A. But I want you to also be able to continue this discussion after Q&A. Right behind the stage there, we do have booths. We have both the CA booth and the Ensono booth, so you can talk with these folks. I'll be hanging out there for a while as well. You can check out the developer playbook. You can go to Ensono's website. You want to give a little commercial, or?
Sure, yeah, it's a shameless plug. So
here's Johnny.
In the final analysis, if you're associated with a mainframe installation or shop, You know, there are a few things you can do. Number one, you can do nothing, right? And what you're doing is you're putting your business at risk.
Bad.
You know, diminished environments, the more diminished, the more risk, and it's going to affect your business. Or two, you can invest, right? And you can invest in a hardware and software, but more importantly, although the software is important, especially if it's CA, but more importantly, the people part, what is succession plan? Or three, look for a service provider, someone who's going to be innovative, provide thought leadership, be your partner in your digital transformation, one that hires really, really cool, smart, bright people, and a company like Ensono. So
Thanks, Ken.
So that you can be good at what you do, and that's run your business.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Sujay. Do we have anybody that'd like to ask a question from the audience? You can step right up to the mic here. You're in Vegas. You might want to do a little, knee pop or something before asking the question.
I'm not shy. I'm sorry, what is your name again on the end?
Sujay.
Sujay?
Yes.
So you were talking about that you guys built either, you said Project Right Side or Bright Side?
Bright Side.
Bright Side?
Yes.
I mean, tell me more about that. Is that a CA product?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna quote Rob Stroud from Forrester. I was at his share session this year, and he mentioned something really cool. He wouldn't say what company. Maybe you're actually here. I don't know. But he mentioned that they ran an experiment where this company obviously has some distributed development, so maybe a mobile app or web application that's somewhere, and then it does a lot of mainframe side stuff as well. So it's going to do CICS or DB2 lookups and things like that. And they had dedicated siloed teams that would build the UI and the server-side code and whatnot. And then somebody would be doing development on maybe making changes to COBOL that runs on CICS, or maybe the Java transactions that run on CICS. What they did was they took these teams and they exchanged them. They put the folks who were working on the COBOL stuff and on mainframe on the distributed side, and they put the people who were working on the distributed side onto mainframe. And I mean, it took them a little while to get productive, but through some hardships, they learned. And then they took them and they combined them back, and they created these like kind of fusion teams where they're working on an application, a mobile to mainframe application, start to finish, this one Scrum team. And that is what we want to enable with Project Brightside is if you're a developer, you're a developer. You shouldn't be a Linux developer or a mainframe developer or something of that sort, right? You're working on an application. It provides some meaningful value. You should be able to do things from start to finish. So we're trying to enable that through various means. One of those is allowing those developers to use whatever text editor or IDE that they want, any scripting language that they want. But in terms of what Project Brightside really is, it's CA trying to encourage and embrace open source and industry standard tools around mainframe development. And we are going to provide certain pieces that will help enable that, specifically this command line interface that I'm talking about, which will serve as a very millennial or even newer developer-friendly interface into ZOS. And we've done a lot of UX case studies, and we've found that just the nature of it is such that developers are able to use it and be productive on the mainframe platform very quickly. And if anybody's interested, we actually do have Brightside on our Validate website today. So if you come to my booth.
And they can see a demo out at the booth.
Yes, I've got a live demo that I can do, and I've got information on how you can actually join our validation and have at it, experiment on
And that access, that validation is this month, and it is our intention that in conjunction with partners that this capability will be offered into open source, at least in part. So we're doing this for the ecosystem. So they told me I needed to keep on time. I apologize, I said one question. I got 13 seconds left. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all being here. You guys get it. You understand the importance of the platform, and you're investing your time to figure out what it takes to keep the millennials interested and bring them on board. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.